Silent Hill, a small town in Maine. But if it was 2006, it would be West Virginia. And I know that kind of looks like Portland. And no, this is not Silent Hill F. That's going to be based in Japan. But what I want to talk about today is Silent Hill 2 specifically. Considered by many gamers to be the title that nailed the aesthetic, drama, and general tone for the whole franchise, and it came out back on the PS2 in September 2001. Geez, talk about a rough time to release a game. It was considered a leap in gaming's ability to convey a unique narrative, atmosphere, and be bold enough to really tackle uncomfortable subject matter as complex as death, trauma, both physical and even mental. Again, this was 2001, so a small team of creating what is considered still to this day as one of the best horror games of all time was pretty impressive. I'm fortunate enough to say that I have played the original Silent Hill 2 back on a PS2, as God intended. It was several years ago, but I remember vividly being really creeped out and on the edge of my seat, nervous to go in any direction, and really just blown away by how horrifying some of these visuals were. I also remember being dazed by the delivery of cutscenes, wrestling for my life with the controls and the bizarro puzzles, but I also remember getting the quote-unquote good ending, and it was just fantastic. The use of music, the solid pacing, the detailed environments was really just unlike anything I'd experienced from a major studio. It was also one of the few games that made me feel uneasy. Horror games can be scary, don't get me wrong, a few jump scares here and there, but very few, and I mean really very few, make me feel uneasy or genuinely scared. With Silent Hill 2, it's one of those rare cases where you think something just may be wrong with the game itself. Weird things happen, like bodies flying all over the place, weird sounds can be made in other rooms, and there are moments where your controls and even the camera and cutscenes just feel haunted. Almost as if the disc you had in your PS2 was just cursed. And that's just a great feeling. I love a good piece of horror that you really just can't stop thinking about, no matter how much time has passed. And of course, with an experience this amazing, the company who owns the rights to it treats it with the utmost respect, preserving its legacy for generations to... Well, that's okay, because the Bloober team, the team responsible for the gorgeous Layers of Fear, Bloober was able to take a crack at revising the memories and the corpse of Silent Hill 2 in a brand spanking new engine with a brand spanking new camera and implementing some brand spanking new puzzles. Look, I get the argument that can be made that this is not the quote-unquote exact game as Silent Hill 2. Sure. But for the average Joe who doesn't want to dust off their PS2 and then spend $100+ on a game that's more than a decade old, this remake is still great. It's still a genuine homage of a game, and it adds an incredible amount of detail, impressive sound design, and it just brings a lot of the fun of the original as well. The main story beats and overall tone of the game, of course, is largely intact. Like I said before, it's the same game in spirit, just not in the same body. You play as James Sunderland, your typical American 30-something-year-old traveling to your typical American small town to see your typical American dead wife that died from your typical American illness. James receives a letter from her after 5 years of her being dead, and in this letter, she tells James to meet her in Silent Hill at their quote-unquote special place. Ooh la la, this sounds like a Hallmark holiday rom-com just waiting to happen. There have been some major changes to the game's combat, puzzles, and a bit of the pacing with the story. Certain story elements, character designs, and items have been altered slightly, and even key moments might have been moved around or changed in some small little ways, but they largely remain in the same spirit of what the original game had in mind. Some of these changes were awesome in my opinion. I think James, Mary, and even the town of Silent Hill as a whole look great, and I love how the camera allows you to take in every small detail, and also the performance of the actors just looks super crisp and really nice just to visually look over, but at the same time has that really uncanny valley aspect to it that made the original so great. It makes Silent Hill feel really believable and lived in. And being able to find those small details in every corner of this game is a real special treat for new and veteran tourists of Silent Hill. Enough stuff in here to spark another 10 years of fan theories. I also think the newer puzzles compared to the original are a little bit better. The solutions feel a lot more organic and genuine at times. You won't be opening a lot of doors with horseshoes in this one. Visuals for some of the puzzles are great as well, and on top of that, the sound design is just phenomenal. You also get some really great new scares and memories with the town of Silent Hill with this new game as well. I think the remake does boss fights in a more interesting manner than the last. The combat in the last one, with the original, was just not super great. And you could argue that it's not great on purpose because it's a survival horror game, but this one has a really grounded and snappy combat that once you kind of get the hang of, it becomes really fun to play around with. But at the same time, it's very punishing if you screw around too much or get caught off guard. However, if I had to be honest, it does kind of become a bit of a sweat fest in later levels where James is carrying an entire arsenal in his little green jacket and just blowing away monsters with a shotgun. And that can kind of feel fun, but at the same time, it feels a bit like a void sometimes when those cutscenes don't just play out exactly how you remembered them, or when moments you remembered really enjoying are just entirely cut from the game itself or don't even appear at all. I won't lie, this remake is phenomenal, but there are some odd decisions sometimes that are being made that I could imagine could really throw off your first time playthrough. For one, the newest form of the Unreal Engine did leave me with some slowdown moments during the larger, more complicated, action-packed moments of the game itself. But one that happened really early on that kind of bothered me a lot was the fact when you boot up the game, it gives you the option for a 90s filter. And I'm not sure what the implication is with this filter. As I mentioned before, the game came out in 2001, and in my opinion, this filter just makes the game kind of play and look slightly worse. I love the remake, and like I said before, it's the most easy and accessible way to really experience Silent Hill 2 in the form of a video game right now. But if you are a veteran to the series, there may be a sharp, painful sense of deja vu at moments, but overall, it's still a fun trip to go down. I get it. I wish I could go back to simpler times, where the idea of remaking a franchise didn't fill you with constant dread. Silent Hill as a series and a franchise has always been really misunderstood by the fans and even the IP owners. And recently, there does seem to be a growing desire for revitalization of the franchise in some form or another. But unfortunately, video games just aren't super accessible, especially for the wider audience. It just needs that vehicle to get to the masses, something that could really convey the mise-en-scène of Silent Hill 2 and really show how special this town could be that's shrouded in fog. Maybe something that isn't a game, maybe something a bit more digestible for, anyone to follow along, maybe something like a movie. I'm not gonna lie, the tone of the whole movie was set right at the start, hinting to the audience that this really wasn't a horror movie, it was more of a comedy. The movie actually shows James and Mary meeting for the first time. This was something that was not in the original game, and in a weird way, kind of reminds me a lot of those cutscenes that happened in the original game as opposed to the remake. The movie literally opens up with James Sunderland, I'm not kidding, driving around in a jet black Mustang, speeding through country hills and smoking a fat doobie. Close enough. Welcome back, Cruising USA.
Cruising USA. Yeah.
The movie genuinely feels like it was made by the dog that was in that secret dog ending of Silent Hill 2. And if I'm being honest, I kind of enjoyed it in a weird, sick, disgusting, and messed up way for what it was. It's hard to explain, but playing Silent Hill 2 and watching Silent Hill 2 are two totally different mediums and two totally different experiences. To condense the entire, subtlety or the little ins and outs of the games and the experiences an average player might have with a first-time playthrough, it can be kind of pretty hard within a 2-hour experience, on top of getting the entire story crammed in there as well. And the director of this movie, Christoph Gaines, even said in the interview that this movie was loosely based on the Silent Hill 2 games, not a direct, remake of the Silent Hill 2 game itself. And another thing he admits in the same interview is that this entire movie takes place in James's head, so it's kind of a weird avant-garde perspective of the Silent Hill 2 game. Additionally, in that same interview, he spoils the ending of his newest movie, so go figure. And the film does such a great job of making James a fun and, just ridiculous version of the James we know and love from the games. And frankly, I can kind of understand why they may have chosen to do this. Watching a movie of James from the video games would probably not be fun and could be hard to understand for a general audience. But watching the pot-smoking, girl-kissing, Mustang-driving professional artist version of James Sunderland is just a different story. It was such a departure from what I really expected the movie to be, and on top of that, it just doubles down on how totally opposite it is to the games. Actually, no, it even triples and quadruples down at times, just making the Silent Hill 2 experience a roller coaster ride at Universal. Totally opposite to the brooding and emotional journey that at times feels like it's leaving more questions than answers that the video game offers. This movie instead screams the answers to you at the top of its lungs and then doesn't make twists into a wood chipper. Watching every possible cardinal sin that could be broken in a Silent Hill 2 movie was just mind-blowing. And at the speed it's going at, you think there's just no way they would divert too far from the stories of the video game itself, but it does hit on key moments and even key shots from the game, and it was impressive when it happens, even if it is a bit like breakneck speed and a little bit of a whiplash experience. And on top of that, there is a lot of horrific and bizarre new angles to the story that Silent Hill fans might be a little bit familiar with already. At the same time, this movie pays homage not just to the Silent Hill 2 game, but 1 and even some of the other versions like Shattered Memories. An example of that was the therapist just kind of being a callback to the Shattered Memories game that was on the Wii. I will give credit though, the film does a great job of hitting the story beats that really matter, and there are some shots that look great at times. There are some really fun, stupid scares mixed in as well. Granted, the movie's not as R-rated as it could have been. Some scenes were definitely censored, but if I'm being honest, after watching the new 28 Years Later movie, I was kind of happy about that. Silent Hill 2 as a game is a methodical and hazy experience, one that I wish more people could experience. And, Return to Silent Hill 2 is just the speedrun version of that experience, letting you kind of witness the game on New Game Plus mode with some extra cheat codes unlocked and James wearing some DLC costumes. Is it a good movie? Hell no. This is a mess from start to finish. The movie has absolutely no subtlety. It just, like I said, hits you in the head and beats you down with information at all times. It's an onslaught visually, auditorily, and, on top of that, just looks really weird. There's no room for your mind to really wander and imagine stuff. You're watching everything just happen all at once, all the time. And it just happens at such a speed where none of it feels believable. It feels more like Uncanny Valley than the video game cutscenes do. Probably one of the most bizarre and ludicrous video game adaptations ever. But the movie does capture the source material. And then it turns it inside out and spins it on its head in a really bizarre way. But it is entertaining, though, to see Silent Hill 2 on the screen. I don't know why, but it's weird. There's a quality about this movie that makes me want to go back and see it again in theaters. I'm not kidding. I will probably be purchasing the rumored director's cut DVD version and then showing it to my friends just to see, their eyes bulge out of their head when stuff happens. Is the movie bad for the Silent Hill franchise?
Maybe. It's kind of hard to explain, but
Basically,
I'm not lying.
Basically, the developers being like, it's kind of hard to, it's the demons, the Illuminati, government for surveillance states. If you're a Silent Hill fan, this may hold a special place in your heart as an entertaining laugh. And maybe if you're lucky, when you show it to that friend, they might Google Silent Hill later and then watch a whole 3-hour-long YouTube documentary about it or, analysis video. I'm not even kidding, by the way. Seeing this movie in theaters was a Silent Hill experience. I sat down in the row with my assigned seat, and then 2 other people came in and sat next to each other in that same row. And, by the way, as a side, I hate assigned seating in movie theaters. That has to go away. But it really felt like a Silent Hill experience. It was just me and them and this movie playing and our brains just being scrambled. And it just was such a bizarre haze of what the fuck was going on screen. At times, I would, just have the most jaw-dropping moment, look at her expression on my face, and I would just look over and it's either a total blank stare or they were also just totally lost and confused and frantically bewildered. But when the lights came on, and I stood up and tried to rush out of that movie theater because I was just like, I don't know, I just was tripping. And on the way out, I remember hearing one of them saying that they really liked the movie. Like, the other people in the movie theater actually enjoyed it. And you know what? Frankly, that only made me more confused. Silent Hill 2 is always about the memories. It's always about the experience rather than the hard-hitting facts. And much like The Town, everyone walks away from it with a new, different perspective on the characters and, hell, even themselves. But there's always that desire to go back. There's always that desire to, just bring those thoughts into focus, bring those moments back to life and really set things right. Really, really do it right the first time. And that's what James is trying to do in the game. And, for me, in my life, there's only one thing that can really bring clarity to my memories.